Right now, on to the point. Targeting corporations. How California lawmakers say they are taking more steps to increase safeguards around immigration enforcement. A 102-acre lot in Sacramento sits empty with no concrete plans for development.
Whatever it is, let's just have a plan and go that direction.
What's behind the delay and what happens next? Tonight calls for a special session in the state legislature as a major California refinery is set to close. And a local prohibition era ban finally repealed, allowing people to give comic books to kids.
We just need them out of here, and we need accountability for what's happened.
Well, that was Minnesota Governor Tim Walz visiting the site of last Saturday's deadly shooting of Alex Preddy. He says that he wants federal officers removed from Minneapolis. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Alex Bell. Protests and tensions in Minnesota continue to make headlines across the nation. And tonight there is a new development in the investigation into that deadly shooting. The two federal officers are now on paid administrative leave. A Customs and Border Protection spokesperson says that the move is a standard protocol. Both fired their weapons during the shooting of Alex Preddy, according to a Department of Homeland Security preliminary report sent to Congress. The report also notifies lawmakers that a preliminary review of body camera footage has been conducted. Meanwhile, protesters have taken to the streets for days in those sub-freezing temperatures.
And I'm really sad that this man was out here exercising his American right, the right that was fought for, and he lost his life to that.
Now back here in Sacramento, nurses held a rally this evening in honor of Alex Preddy and others who have been killed by ICE. They lined up on Highway 50. You see them right there over the overpass near 59th Street. This is a part of a week-long series of actions by the National Nurses United RN members. They are demanding that Congress vote to abolish ICE that they say poses a public health threat to all of our communities. And in Woodland, where Congressman Mike Thompson just wrapped up a town hall that has been named a Fire Nome Day of Action. He joins community members who are demanding that Kristi Nome's impeachment happen and end to what they are saying are dangerous DHS enforcement tactics after federal agents killed Alex Preddy and Renee Good. And today, more legislation was introduced at the state capitol aimed at increasing state safeguards around immigration enforcement. ABC 10 State Matters political reporter Jenny Huh has the breakdown for us tonight.
If you are going to impose this kind of terror on our state and on our people, we are going to tax you for the pain and harm that you're causing.
That's the goal of AB 1633 by Democratic Assemblymember Matt Haney to place a 50% tax on corporate profits from detention operations. That money will be redirected to immigration services like legal representation.
This is how ICE is expanding its attacks on Californians.
The bill targets for-profit private prison companies, Core Civic, which operates 2 detention centers in California, and Geo Group, which operates 4. MTC, Management and Training Corporation, another private for-profit corporation, also has a facility.
Who operates these centers? Corporate greed. Now that corporate greed goes all the way into the Trump White House.
According to the American Civil Liberties Union of Northern California, these corporations make hundreds of millions annually by contracting with ICE.
The federal government is allowed to enter into these contracts. We are not able to tell them that they cannot do that even within our state.
If they don't want to pay taxes,
you can leave. You can leave our state.
Democratic Assemblymember Alex Lee is working on the No Tax Breaks for ICE Contractors Act, a bill complementary to AB 1633.
Corporations that do business in California can choose. They can either get their tax breaks from California or get their profits from ICE. They get to choose.
Lee says his bill encourages businesses to pivot to different profit avenues.
There are lots of things that they can do legally and more ethically, and we would encourage that.
In response, a representative of Core Civic, Geo Group, and MTC tells us contractors have partnered with both Democratic and Republican administrations and, quote, contractors do not make arrests, do not decide the length of detention, and play no role in determining the legal status of individuals in their care. Jenny Huh, ABC 10.
And the latest deadly shooting by federal agents in Minneapolis has increased the odds of a government shutdown. Some Democrats refuse to support funding for the Department of Homeland Security, but Republicans need that bipartisan support to keep several key government agencies open, something that we'll continue to follow.
In the wake of ICE's abuses and the administration's recklessness, the Senate must not pass The DHS budget is currently written and must be reworked to rein in and overhaul ICE to ensure the public's safety.
The Democrats have raised an objection with the DHS funding bill. Now, the ironic thing about that, obviously, is that the DHS funding bill actually, if enacted, would spend less on ICE and some of the other things the Democrats are concerned about.
And U.S. Senator Alex Padilla also spoke on the Senate floor today, laying out his case against funding for the Department of Homeland Security, calling for changes under the Trump administration and ICE.
When the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States respond to an incident like that by messaging to federal agents, don't worry, you have complete immunity. It's the opposite of the message that we should be sending if we're trying to de-escalate tensions and make sure that law enforcement abides by the law.
Now, this Friday is the deadline for Congress to pass a funding package, or there could be a partial government shutdown. One thing that comes up during a government shutdown, of course, is the issue of Congress still getting paychecks while many federal workers are furloughed or even work without pay, something we saw during the last shutdown. A viewer actually reached out to us asking for us to explain why Congress isn't affected. So take a look at this. According to Article 1, Section 6 of the U.S. Constitution, members of Congress must be paid. And this compensation continues during a government shutdown because it is funded by permanent mandatory appropriations rather than annual budget bills. Since 1983, congressional pay has been classified as mandatory spending and not subject to the annual appropriations process that causes shutdowns. Now, despite receiving pay, many members of Congress have historically refused or even donated their salaries during shutdowns. There's Ami Bera, Mike Thompson, Josh Harder, Kevin Kiley, also Tom McClintock are just a few of our local Congress members who actually refused their salaries during last year's government shutdown. All right, tonight, state Senate Republicans are calling for an emergency session over Valero's refinery closure. They sent a letter to the governor as the Valero Benicia location is set to cease all California operations and following the shutdown of the Phillips 66 refinery in Los Angeles.
There are several things that we can do to keep them here. We can reduce some cap and trade issues. We can get CARB off their back. We can get less regulation. There's an opportunity here for the whole industry if the Senate urges the governor to do something.
Governor Newsom responded on social media saying, quote, gas prices are cheaper today in real dollars than they were during Gavin Newsom's first month in office, in part because he called two special sessions Republicans voted against. Now, after 2 years without price spikes at the pump, Republicans are asking for a special session in 2026 when the state is seeing its lowest gas prices in 4 years. And we will have more coming up on Late News tonight at 11 on California's gas regulations and also a lawsuit that was just filed. But I want to get to a follow-up on a story that we brought you the other day. After a packed special meeting just last night, Highlands Community Charter and Technical Schools is now without its charter. The Twin Rivers Unified School District Board voted to revoke the charter, the final step in a months-long review that followed an ABC 10 investigation about this state audit. Now, public comment was emotional last night, with many urging the board to keep the school open, but trustees, they overwhelmingly moved forward, citing financial responsibility. That vote came after a state audit prompted by our reporting here at ABC 10, which found Highlands received more than $180 million in taxpayer funds that it was not eligible to collect. Our investigation also uncovered uncredentialed teachers, unapproved campuses, and taxpayer money that was spent on luxury trips and gifts. Despite the vote, Highlands is not closing. Highlands now has 30 days to appeal, and they say that they will. In a statement, Highlands said in part that the board had, quote, defied a staff recommendation to uphold the charter after their team concluded Highlands had submitted ample evidence that alleged every violation of the charter had been fully cured. They add that the school will remain open during the appeal process. Still ahead on To the Point, no interest rate cuts announced today during a growing power struggle, why the Fed says independence matters. And a law from 1949 is finally off the books. It's actually very interesting why Sacramento just repealed a ban on comic books.
And we're going back to our normal weather. Morning fog, some afternoon clearing, highs very seasonal. We'll talk about how our reservoirs are doing in this dry spell coming up after the break.
But first, another headlines tonight. U.S. forces will conduct a multi-day air exercise in the Middle East as the U.S. boosts its military presence in the region amid tensions with Iran. The announcement comes after President Trump threatened possible military action against the regime over a crackdown against anti-government protests. Winter weather causing more trouble in the South. This is a long line of tractor trailers that got stranded on this interstate in Batesville, Mississippi. Drone video shows the long line of trucks stuck due to recent snowfall in the region.
The Challenger crew was pulling us into the future, and we'll continue to follow.
And 40 years ago today, the country shared a collective grief when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 37 seconds after launch, killing all 7 crew members on board, including 37-year-old Krista McAuliffe. For more, ABC 10 is streaming a special right now on the Challenger on the ABC 10 app. Well, you probably heard a little bit of rain last night if you're in Sacramento. Let's get things over to meteorologist Brendan Minchef to take a look at that rain. It wasn't a lot, but it was a little nice.
Yeah, it was a little as expected. I mean, we knew this was not going to be a big storm coming in. You know, I mentioned don't get too excited, and these numbers are why. I mean, Sacramento only 1/10 of an inch. Much of the metro area between about 0.05 of an inch of rain and 1/10 of an inch of rain. In the San Joaquin Valley, rain was a lot harder to come by. Lathrop and Riverbank each picked up 1/100 of an inch, but Stockton and Modesto were dry. No rain fell in Stockton or Modesto yesterday. We made it to 60 today in the capital city, 63 Stockton, 64 in Modesto, 61 in Jackson, 40s in the high country. We had a lot of sunshine thanks to those northerly winds, which are starting to die down. And as those winds die down, we will welcome back the fog. Right now, we are in those mid-50s across much of the valley. Thursday morning, we'll start off in the low 40s. But again, that fog is coming back, so I'm not expecting a clear night ahead. A dense fog advisory has already been posted by the Weather Service. That starts at midnight, continues until noon tomorrow. So Thursday, fog early. I do expect to see some clearing as we go through the afternoon. Again, this is the weather pattern that we've had for much of the last couple of weeks, where that gray will linger into maybe even 2-3 o'clock. Get a couple of hours of sunshine, and then that's it. That fog starts to come back. So back near seasonal, upper 50s across the valley. As we roll into February, though, this is February 5th through 11th, very likely drier than normal. That's across the West Coast. So there's no big pattern change on the way. This pattern's not flipping to cooler and wetter, even though February is one of our wetter months of the year. But here's why I'm not all that concerned. Our 3 largest reservoirs, Trinity, Shasta, and Oroville, not in that order, are all at least 80% of capacity and all between 125% and 138% of normal. So our reservoirs have got plenty of water in them. Even if we end up below average on the water year, we've got water stored up thanks to recent wet winters, Alex.
All right, Brendan, thanks. Right after the break, a 102-acre lot 4 years after the city bought it is still sitting empty. Our Becca Habegger is standing by to explain why nothing has been built yet and what Sacramento says is coming next. And it was once illegal in Sacramento to give a kid a comic book. Yes, a decades-old ban just got scrapped. Why artists say it matters. Let's jump into your price points. Interest rates will remain the same. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell announced the decision after a meeting held today. It comes as President Donald Trump has been pressuring the central bank to cut rates. The Supreme Court is considering whether he can fire a Fed governor over unproven allegations. And Powell says the Justice Department is also investigating him. Economists widely endorse independence for the Federal Reserve so they can make decisions without political interference. Without it, they fear that the U.S. will face higher inflation. Now, the central bank did cut rates 3 times last year as it monitored the economic effects of Trump's policies, especially his broad global tariff plan. And tonight, a 102-acre lot is still sitting vacant 4 years after the city of Sacramento bought it to develop it for public good. Now, ideas have included affordable housing, a sports complex, and a park. I'm sure you've probably been following this, but still, nothing has been in development. I want to bring in ABC 10's Becca Habegger, who's joining us live in studio. Becca, you actually spoke with the council member who's overseeing this area.
Yeah, Sacramento City Council member Mai Vang tells me some of the delay comes from ensuring the city and the community is getting that input. As we've reported, the city has held multiple listening sessions over the years, and now the city has announced it's requesting so-called expressions of interest from people, companies, and organizations that want to be part of developing the lot.
South Sacramento deserves nothing but the best.
Sacramento City Council member Mai Vang represents District 8, which includes this vacant 102-acre lot in the Meadowview neighborhood.
I want to see more affordable housing, and I also want to see public amenities for our youth and our seniors.
The city bought the lot from the federal government 4 years ago in an excess land auction. It was originally used by the California Highway Patrol as a testing track before the feds bought it in 1978. Over the past 4 years, the city has held community listening sessions, hearing ideas including affordable housing, a sports complex, community gardens, a grocery store, restaurants, and services for the unhoused.
Let's just get it done. Whatever it is, let's just have a plan and go in that direction.
Junior Goris is president of the Delta Shores Community Association, which partially surrounds the lot. He says 4 years is a long time to go without a plan.
It's a little frustrating. I mean, the city made a promise to the residents of our district, and it's time for them to step up. That piece of property is going to be really, really instrumental in the growth of District 8. We definitely need the jobs in the area. We definitely need the economic boost in the area.
Development does take time, but what I will share with you, Becca, is that I'm doing everything I can to move with a sense of urgency. I think for far too long, South Sacramento has been underinvested.
In April 2024, city staff presented to City Council the findings of an opportunities and constraints analysis. That's when council members decided they wanted a mixed-use approach that could include housing and economic catalyst and outdoor space.
This item was actually ready for a vote back in March of 2025, but the mayor, who was new at the time, put a pause on the project because he wanted to understand the development.
Now the city has put out a call for expressions of interest to better understand market insights, conditions, and trends for the property. The RFEI represents another step in gathering information to help inform the city's next actions.
Expressions of interest, as you were saying, that rolls right off the tongue. AKA, let us know if you're interested.
Yeah, right.
What has the city been seeing so far?
Well, so far more than 40 companies and organizations have gone on the city's bidding website and said, hey, we're interested in being a part of this. They range from Habitat for Humanity of Greater Sacramento to other affordable housing developers to environmental consultants and civil engineers, basically all entities that could possibly be involved in some way in developing these 102 acres.
Now, for people that are interested, I know that the deadline is coming up February 27th, I believe.
Yes, yeah. And the city will evaluate at that point the proposals. And the city has said, though, the lot could take 6 years to develop once they take a plan. Yes.
Wow.
Selling the lot, by the way, I should mention, is also on the table. So we'll continue to follow this long-suffering story as it rolls along.
All right, Becca, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, did you know that up until just yesterday afternoon, it was illegal in the city of Sacramento to give a kid a comic book? Well, the city council repealed the outdated prohibition at its meeting just yesterday. So it was adopted back in 1949. The city ordinance made it unlawful for anyone to give a minor any comic book that predominantly featured crime or depicted violent acts. Now, the ban came at a time in American culture when some feared that comic books could lead to illiteracy in children or even encourage them to be violent. At yesterday's meeting, Sacramento City Council members voted unanimously to repeal that ordinance, which has not been enforced in many years. But we spoke with a Sacramento cartoonist who led this effort and sees it as a matter of free speech.
Some more graphic novels lately have been become like the most banned book across the country. And knowing that this law was on the books, it just felt like, why wait until this turns into a calamity or a problem for a local store or a comic book author like myself? The city loves comics. Why not be a little proactive, get it off the books?
Now, a similar law in Los Angeles County was ruled unconstitutional in 1959 by the California Supreme Court. Today, Sacramento has a very active comic book scene, including an annual comics showcase at the Crocker Art Museum called CrockerCon. All right after the break, a look at what's ahead for tomorrow. Our champion of hope, a high school principal who says that changing lives by leading with heart is everything. All right, tomorrow in our Champion of Hope, we are heading out to Roseville, where one high school principal is making a big impact on her campus. Roseville High School principal Ashley Sarin is often seen sharing life on campus through social media, but those posts only really tell part of the story. Teachers and students say that her real impact happens face to face. She is creating a culture built on kindness, support, and connection. And look, this story is really just a good reminder that one person can definitely make a difference. Well, as always, thank you so much for joining us and for watching and always inviting us into your home. If you have something that you think the team and I should be looking into, you can always email us at tothepoint@abc10.com. Have a great night. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.